Hello guys, welcome to another video. Now in this one I'm continuing the coverage of Path of Exile 2's new unique items that were added to the game in patch 0.2 with Rathpith Globe. Now this is another returning unique from PoE1, and unlike the unique I covered in the previous video, Tabula Rasa, this one has largely kept the same identity going into PoE2 with a few key changes. So Rathpith Globe is a unique focus that incentivizes life stacking. And the first key difference there from the PoE1 version is that this item is a focus in PoE2, not a shield. So it doesn't grant any inherent block, and in fact it has completely lost its block theming altogether. Another key difference is that PoE2's version of this unique adds a life cost to non-channeling spells, instead of imposing a life sacrifice. So you'll need to be mindful of having enough life to be able to actually cast your spells. And lastly, PoE2's version of this item is specific to non-channeling spells, so channeling spells won't incur the life cost or benefit from the increased spell damage or increased crit chance. Now in terms of rarity, it looks like Rathpith Globe may be a tier 1 unique, so not quite as rare as Tabula Rasa, but still not something you're going to see dropping all that often. Okay, let's look at Rathpith Globe's modifiers in a bit more detail. So we have some energy shield and a decent life roll on here, helping to push that life total up a bit higher, important for the payoff you'll gain from using this item. Now Rathpith is going to add an extra life cost to your non-channeling spell usage. So having good recovery for your life is going to be crucial in terms of life resource management, and stacking up life regen is going to be useful here, especially percentage-based life regen, that naturally scales up as you gain more and more maximum life. The Smith of Kitava is an interesting option here for that reason, as it's able to gain a huge amount of regen on top of increased maximum life and increased strength, in trade-off for using a normal body armor. But you will need to have extremely good flat life and strength rolls on your other gear pieces to make this work. But more likely the better option than that is the Blood Mage. Now the Blood Mage is a natural fit for Rathpith Globe, and whilst the spell and crit scaling doesn't account for overcapped life, this ascendancy does have incredible tools to not only stack life, but also take advantage of it in other ways and solve recovery at the same time. The most important part there being that solving of recovery using spell life leech from the Vitality Siphon notable. This will allow you to immediately leech the life lost from casting your spells when you deal damage to monsters. And really, once you've solved that crucial life cost downside of Rathpith Globe, the rest of the item is pure upside. 5% increased crit chance and 10% increased damage for non-channeling spells for every 100 maximum life. So for example, a character with 4000 maximum life, they'll be gaining 400% increased damage and 200% increased critical strike chance for non-channeling spells, and that's a lot. One thing that this item allows you to do is focus on scaling your life and critical damage bonus on the tree rather than increased damage sources, as you gain so much of it from your offhand slot that it becomes less valuable to spec into on the tree, and you can make use of these bonuses in a few notable ways. I want to go over a few builds using this item, beginning with this one here, which is a fairly standard spellcaster. So we have Rathpith, notably corrupted, so even more damage and crit chances being gained from life scaling. Also a lower added life cost too. Morior Invictus is there too, a corrupted 5-socket for a lot of life scaling and some resistance scaling there as well. And notice all of the soul cores of Jaquani for 2% increased maximum life each. And I also want to mention Aziri's Acuity, the unique gloves, for instant life leech, which is really nice to be able to immediately recover those life costs back to full. And of course, 3 Grand Spectrum Rubies for 2% max life per spectrum for a total of 18% increased maximum life from those 3 jewels. And also, Blood Magic is being used, so this build has pure life costs, no mana costs. And something to mention here is the options taken on the Blood Mage Ascendancy itself, because this Ascendancy has a bunch of nodes that you want as a life stacker, but you can't take all of them. So this build is going for the base spell crit, allowing Rathpith Globe's crit scaling to be more efficient, and the increased crit damage bonus per 40 life from Gore Spike, and unlike Rathpith Globe, this modifier does scale from your overcapped life as well, And that's really where the synergy for life stacking on the Blood Mage comes into play, because Overcap's life is capped at twice your normal maximum, so scaling your maximum life does wonders for both modifiers. Now, the cool thing about Rathpith Globe is that there's quite a few different builds using this item in different ways. For example, this next build here is also a Blood Mage and is also a more standard spellcaster using lightning spells instead of fire. But this one is at the more extreme end of life stacking, with almost 9,000 maximum life. That is absolutely wild, but it comes at a huge cost. Not only does this character not have any spirit because of the use of Calm's Heart, but they also have 0 elemental resistances because of the Veil of the Night. Now, the Veil of the Night is an interesting one in PoE2, and it's definitely much less of a meme item than it was in PoE1. The Blood Mage is the class that is able to use this item the best, as with almost 9,000 life, they'll be able to achieve mammoth amounts of life with overcapping from picked up Blood Orbs. But they are paying the price for that obscene amount of life. This character will be taking 4 times as much elemental damage as a character with 75% resistances, but they are gaining 1056% increased spell damage and 528% increased spell crit chance from Rathpith Globe, not to mention the potential 440% or so increased crit damage bonus from the Ascendancy at maximum overcapped life. That is crazy. Now, moving on from the extremes of the Blood Mage builds to a Titan build that is using Rathpith very differently. This is actually an attack build using a spear, and this only works because of another new unique item, the Crown of Eyes, which makes increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attacks. So all of that increased spell damage from Rathpith's life scaling is applied to increased attack damage as well, which means the increased damage for this build is largely taken care of, but what about flat damage? You'll notice this build is using Tangle Tongue, which is an incredibly popular unique spear in 0.2. This spear has a huge base crit, and it actually rolls its crit chance twice when attacking, and if both crit chances succeed, it will apply the critical damage bonus twice to the attack, which is incredible for damage scaling, but notably the spear has very lackluster damage. So this build is using another new unique item in this patch, the Bursting Decay, 2 of them in fact. These are rings that make you lose a large percentage of your maximum life per second, but if you can overcome that, you gain a percentage of your maximum life as flat added physical damage to attacks. So using 2 of these, this build is able to get about 290 flat added physical damage, which is pretty good, and it's another fun combination to combine with Rathpith to really benefit from that life scaling. Now, the last one that I want to mention here is this Blood Mage, which is doing a similar thing to the previous Titan build, but notably, flat damage is being gained from rare rings and the glove slot instead. However, something to point out here is that whilst this build doesn't have nearly as much life as the others, it does have a large amount of energy shield, and that's because it's using the other half of the Blood Mage Ascendancy, that's this branch on the right hand side, and using Crimson Power you can scale a huge amount of flat energy shield from the body armor, whilst also gaining all of that energy shield as flat life as well, which opens up some interesting options defensively. Now overall, Rathpith Globe is a very welcome addition to Path of Exile 2, and it certainly meets the ambition of an endgame focused unique, with many new builds sprouting up in 0.2 as a result of this, and several other new uniques added in this patch. Perhaps you are using this item in your build, or maybe you've been inspired to make a life stacker. Let me know by commenting below, and thank you for watching this video. As always, stay tuned and stay safe.